For centuries, the Egyptian pyramids have fascinated researchers with a huge number of unsolved mysteries. And although these are some of the most famous and studied architectural monuments in the world, there are still more questions related to the pyramids than there are answers. And the main one is the theory of the construction of these mysterious structures. There are still many conflicting opinions about their construction. With the development of technologies and the emergence of modern research methods, tomography, modeling, temperature screening, new data are emerging about how ancient architects worked. Today in the video we will try to give an exhaustive answer to the still open question: how were the pyramids of Egypt built? The Pyramid of Cheops, or the Great Pyramid of Giza, erected during the 4th dynasty of Pharaoh Khufu, Cheops, is the only one of the 7 wonders of the world that has survived to this day. And although its age is already 4,500 years old, and it is the largest of all the ancient Egyptian pyramids, there is still debate about how it was built. The Great Pyramid was composed of more than 2 million huge stones. The largest blocks hung several tens of tons. And the total weight of the structure, with a height of almost 140 meters, was almost 6.5 million tons. In order for the pyramid not to go underground under its own weight, a solid rocky soil was chosen for its foundation. Granite blocks were brought here from a quarry that was thousands of kilometers away. Scientists still have not reached agreement on the answer to the question: how were the stones transported? And how was the Pyramid of Cheops built? And while they are determined with the basic theory, the technology of pyramid construction is overgrown with myths. The most common of them claims that the pyramids were not built by the Egyptians, but by more ancient or even extraterrestrial civilizations. However, historians working with ancient documents remind us that the Egyptians had a habit of writing everything down. And if extraterrestrial civilizations were engaged in construction, then we would definitely read about it in ancient Egyptian sources. Another popular myth says that some secret knowledge is encrypted in the pyramids, up to the point that the purpose of the pyramids was to make astronomical observations, but scientists Jean-Philippe Lauer, Rainer Stadelmann and Marc Lenoir, who devoted their entire lives to the study of the pyramids, authoritatively state that most mathematical and astronomical theories are based on incomplete or incorrect data. At least, because it has not yet been proven that the Egyptians in ancient times possessed the same mathematical apparatus that those who explore the pyramids now use. Therefore, it is unlikely that any knowledge is encrypted in them for us. In contrast to the myth voiced, there is another theory according to which the pyramids were intended for the banal storage of grain, but modern archaeologists, such as Alice Stevenson from the Museum of Egyptian Archaeology at University College London, do not take such statements seriously. The pyramids at Giza are, first of all, of course, the tomb of the pharaohs, but they are also symbols that concentrate the ideological and religious attitudes of ancient Egypt around them. According to the Egyptians, the deceased will be able to lead an afterlife if 2 conditions are met. If in this world he was provided with everything necessary for existence and was able to preserve his body. The consequence of these ideas was the mummification of the deceased and the construction of tombs resembling fortresses. After all, each pyramid was supposed to serve as an eternal protection for the body hidden in it. And if the question for what in general everything is quite clear, the questions of what and how were the pyramids built remain unsolved. Not so long ago, the media was overwhelmed by waves of pseudoscientific fabrications on the topic of ancient Egyptian construction methods. In particular, it is claimed that the stone building blocks that make up the pyramids are actually concrete structures. To refute this fake, geologist James Harlow from the American University of Toledo had to map 128 ancient quarries on the territory of present-day Egypt and northern Sudan and figure out which epochs were preferred to certain building materials in various parts of the ancient Egyptian state. But now we know that the main building materials in ancient Egypt were relatively soft, that is, easy-to-process sedimentary rocks, limestones and sandstones. Initially, the main stone of the Egyptian builders was limestone. Since it is more common, for example, one of the Great Pyramids of Khafra in Giza was built from limestone, which was mined right behind it. Sandstones were used less often, due to difficulties with transportation. They became a popular building material in later times. Less often and probably for special purposes, both practical to strengthen the building and ceremonial to pay homage to the pharaoh or priest. The Egyptians mined and processed very hard granites or granadierites or drained highly silicified sandstones and basalts. Of the 128 known quarries, 89 produced limestone, 36 sandstones, 3 gypsum and anhydride. That's the answer to the question, what are the pyramids built of? In order to avoid gaps between large blocks in buildings, as well as the emptiness of chips, the Egyptians invented their own type of gypsum-based mortar. When this mineral is heated to 100 to 200 degrees Celsius, it loses some of the water and turns into semi-hydrated gypsum. When mixed with water, the substance crystallizes again in the form of gypsum and hardens quickly. Usually the stone was mined in open-type quarries, but when special quality material was needed, tunnels were punched up to 100 meters deep into the cliff. With the help of picks, chisels and stone sledgehammers, rectangular blocks were cut down. How were they delivered to the construction site? The discovery of an ancient papyrus in the seaport of Wadi al-Jarf in 2013 was a great success. After deciphering the document, scientists learned that during the construction of the Great Pyramid, a team of 40 workers opened dams to divert water from the Nile into artificial channels leading directly to the pyramids. So they were able to establish that the giant stone blocks were transported mainly by water. How did the Egyptians bring them up? In 2018, archaeologists reported that they had found an ancient ramp system in the eastern desert of Egypt in the Hatnub Quarry. This 4,500-year-old ramp is an inclined surface with 2 ladders on the sides and numerous holes in the ground. Archaeologists believe that a group of workers dragged the cargo up the hill using ropes thrown over wooden poles, and this made the task easier. There was also evidence of how they moved blocks across the sand. In the tomb of the 12th dynasty of Jehu-Taihatep there are images of 172 men pulling a sleigh with his alabaster statue, whose weight is estimated at 60 tons. The illustration shows a man standing in front of a sleigh and pouring water on the sand. Why he did this was unknown for certain, until experiments showed that the correct amount of moisture in the sand halves the required traction force. With the right amount of water, wet desert sand is about twice as hard as dry sand, which means that the sled is much easier to slide on wet sand. Now a few words about who built the pyramids. All the latest historical research categorically rejects the fact that the pyramids were built by slaves. Modern finds unequivocally confirm that the tombs of the pharaohs were built by free Egyptians. In confirmation of this, an international team of archaeologists led by American Mark Lehner discovered 2 ancient settlements on the Giza Plateau, where the builders of the pyramids lived. It is known that the builders worked on shifts. One shift lasted 3 months. At the same time, the largest number of employees was observed only 4 to 5 months a year, when most people were moving stone blocks. According to estimates by Mark Lehner, about 20,000 people were involved in the construction of the Pyramid of Cheops throughout Egypt, including about 4,000 people working directly on the construction. It is also possible that those who were engaged in low-skilled work worked in shifts, and professionals were in the constant service of the pharaoh. Archaeozoologist Richard Redding, based on the analysis of the bones of domestic animals found at the excavations and the protein needs of a person engaged in hard work, estimated how many products were required by the builders of the pyramids. According to his calculations, the workers ate about 1,800 kilograms of meat every day, that is, about 11 cows and 37 sheep and goats. Back in the workers' settlement, beer was brewed and bread was baked. As you can see, modern science can tell us a lot about the past and shed light on the mysteries that have not yet been solved.